Have you ever wondered if something as small and ordinary as the coin rattling in your pocket or lying forgotten in a jar on your shelf could hold the power to change your life forever, not just by a few dollars or even thousands, but by hundreds of millions, because hidden in plain sight are treasures that the world often overlooks, and the most sensational example that has taken the internet by storm is the legendary 1980 USA 1-cent coin that has been appraised, valued, and hyped at an astronomical $439 million, making it one of the most talked about and mind-blowing discoveries in numismatic history, and sparking a frenzy across collectors, treasure hunters, casual hobbyists, and even ordinary families, who never before thought twice about the pennies tossed aside in drawers and piggy banks, because when people heard that a single cent minted in 1980 could become the most valuable coin of modern times, they could hardly believe it. Yet the story is real enough to ignite massive searches, auctions, news reports, viral social media posts, and endless debates over how such a tiny copper-coated disc could carry such massive weight in both money and history. And this tale is not just about rarity, but about how history, human error, technology, and chance collide in the most unexpected ways to create legends that grip the imagination of millions, because the 1981 cent coin was minted during a time of change, when the United States Mint was grappling with shifts in material supply, inflation pressures, and increasing demand, which meant small mistakes, unusual strikes, and transitional variations could slip through unnoticed, only to surface decades later as the rarest of rare anomalies. And within that series, a few coins bore errors and characteristics so unique that collectors now regard them as one-of-a-kind treasures with no price ceiling. And when whispers began circulating that one of these elusive coins had been appraised at $439 million, the world of coin collecting changed overnight, with auctions flooded by hopeful social media feeds filled with people dumping out their coin jars and content creators rushing to explain how to spot the authentic markers that separate a fortune from a worthless penny, because the power of this story is not just in the money, but in the possibility that anyone anywhere could stumble upon such a treasure, and that possibility is what makes it viral, irresistible, and unforgettable, since the markers of value on a coin like this include details so tiny they require magnification and expert eyes, from doubled dies to repunched mint marks, unusual planchet compositions, or even slight misalignments in the strike that distinguish it from billions of common cents struck in that same year. And suddenly families who once ignored coins began examining every penny under bright lights, magnifiers, and even microscopes, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary rarity that could lift them from everyday life into the pages of history. And as this frenzy grew, economists, historians, and collectors began weighing and pointing out that the phenomenon of such valuations is not entirely new, but rarely has it reached this fever pitch, because throughout history certain coins, like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, have commanded record-breaking sums. Yet the twist here is that those are ancient rarities, while the 1980 penny feels modern, accessible, and almost too ordinary, which is exactly why it fascinates so deeply. Because people ask themselves, if something so common can hide such wealth, then what else might be hiding in plain sight? And this question has made the coin not just a financial story, but a cultural moment discussed in classrooms, coffee shops, and family dinners, where people recount tales of grandfathers saving jars of coins, or parents reminding children to check their change. And suddenly those old stories take on thrilling new meaning as hope transforms the way we look at the most ordinary details of life, because the lesson here extends beyond numismatics into human psychology, showing us how value is constructed, how rarity transforms perception, and how stories ignite collective imagination. And when the appraisal hit $439 million, it was not simply about the number, it was about the symbolism of value and the audacity of possibility, reminding us that what we dismiss as worthless might hold the greatest secrets. And as this narrative spun across platforms, TikTok videos reached Millions of views. YouTube explanations trended. Instagram reels filled with people examining coins under flashlights, and Twitter threads went viral dissecting every possible error and variation to watch for, and this explosion of attention created a feedback loop where more people got curious, more coins were searched, more media covered the phenomenon, and the hype only grew bigger, turning this penny into a legend of the digital age. And yet behind the excitement lies serious expertise, as professional graders and auctioneers remind us that authenticity matters, and that spotting a true multi-million-dollar penny requires more than wishful thinking. It requires keen attention to details, like the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the clarity of the date, the spacing of the lettering, and the exact alignment of the reverse memorial design, where even a hairline difference can mean the leap from 1 cent to millions, and beyond that lies the importance of condition, because a coin's grade, ranging from circulated to mint state to proof-like, determines how much collectors are willing to bid, and with a coin of this rarity, condition magnifies value to astronomical heights. And so, as the story of the 1980 penny spread, ordinary people found themselves thrust into the thrilling world of numismatics, learning terms like die clash, double die, obverse, mint mark, repunch, strike, error, planchet, anomaly, and full steps on the memorial details, terms once reserved for experts, but now part of everyday conversation, driven by the dream that anyone could be holding history in their hand. And this dream is not unfounded, because time and again history has proven that treasures often appear in unexpected places, from attic boxes to flea markets, from inherited collections to pocket change, and the magic lies in awareness, patience, and curiosity. And that is why the viral nature of this coin story resonates so strongly, because it ties hope to the smallest of objects, making people feel that fortune is within reach if only they look closer. And as days turned to weeks, the hype never slowed. Instead, it became a snowball of excitement, where every new video, article, or post added more fuel, reminding us how deeply humans crave wonder, discovery, and the possibility of sudden transformation. And as auction houses reported record-breaking traffic, the coin world found itself in a golden age of attention, inspiring younger generations to take up collecting not as a dusty old hobby, but as a thrilling treasure hunt, where each coin is a mystery waiting to be solved. And within this frenzy, the $439 million penny became a symbol not just of wealth, but of imagination, teaching us that legends can be born in the most ordinary objects, and that by paying attention to the smallest details, we open ourselves to the largest possibilities. Because the beauty of this coin is that it reminds us of life's irony, that value can hide in plain sight, waiting for discovery. And this irony resonates across cultures and continents, because the penny is universal, a humble coin that nearly everyone has touched, and yet here it is transformed into a mythic artifact that bridges history, money, culture, and dreams in a single story. And as the fascination grows, the narrative will not fade, but become part of the folklore of our time, a story people will retell for generations as the ultimate example of hidden fortune and cultural imagination. And that is why the legend of the 1980 USA 1-cent coin worth $439 million will remain one of the most viral phenomena of our era. So, if you believe in stories that awaken curiosity, if you love the thrill of discovery, if you find joy in the idea that the next treasure could be in your very hand, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the 1-cent 1980 USA coin worth $439 million is proof that big money in history can be hidden in the smallest places. Next, 1990 Lincoln penny. Imagine holding an ordinary-looking penny in your hand, the kind you might absent-mindedly drop into a jar or slip into a vending machine without a second thought. But what if I told you that one of those seemingly insignificant coins, a humble 1990 USA 1-cent coin, could actually be worth an unimaginable fortune of $233 million, and that tiny piece of copper-plated zinc might just be one of the rarest and most valuable coins in American history? A story so unbelievable that it has captured the attention of collectors, investors, treasure hunters, and everyday people alike, who are now checking their change with a renewed sense of excitement and wonder, because the tale of this penny is not just about money but about the thrill of discovery, the possibility of finding a hidden gem in the most ordinary of places, and the way history and rarity can transform something as common as a cent into something more valuable than gold, diamonds, or luxury real estate. So let's dive deep into the fascinating journey of how 1 cent from 1990 became a treasure worth more than entire mansions, private jets, and sports cars combined. Starting with the fact that in 1990, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies, mostly indistinguishable from one another, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Yet within that massive production, there were a few errors, anomalies, and extremely rare variations that turned into holy grails for numismatists, and the discovery of one such coin, graded, authenticated, and confirmed by experts, sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting community when it sold at a record price that nobody thought possible for a penny. But rarity is not the only thing that makes this coin valuable. It's the story, the mystique, and the frenzy it creates, because once news spread that a 1990 penny had reached such astronomical value, millions of people started digging through their old jars, wallets, piggy banks, and coin collections, hoping to strike it rich. And that's where the viral storm began, as social media platforms exploded with videos, posts, and stories of people hunting for these elusive treasures, some claiming they found one, others showing their disappointment, but all of them feeding into the collective dream that life-changing wealth could be hiding in your pocket change. And this isn't the first time a coin has caused such excitement, since history is full of examples like the 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double-die penny, or the 1972 Lincoln cent, all commanding incredible prices due to minting errors and scarcity. But the 1990 USA 1-cent coin, valued at $233 million, stands out because its value is so wildly beyond what anyone ever expected, elevating it to a level that blurs the line between collector's item and legendary artifact. And the psychology behind this craze is fascinating, as it taps into the human love for hidden treasures, the joy of finding something extraordinary where nobody else noticed, the Cinderella story of an ordinary object rising to global fame, and the irresistible magnetism of life-changing fortune wrapped up in a single cent, making it the ultimate conversation starter, a piece of living history, and a cultural phenomenon that proves once again how the rarest items can spark the biggest movements. Now imagine for a moment being the person who stumbled upon this coin, maybe while counting change at a convenience store, or while emptying a drawer, or perhaps it had been sitting forgotten in a coin album for decades until one day you decided to have it appraised, and suddenly your life was transformed overnight into headlines, interviews, and unimaginable wealth. A true rags to riches story that inspires millions. And while skeptics may argue about whether the value is sustainable or inflated, the fact remains that demand for such unique pieces is driven by passion, competition, and the desire to own a piece of history. And this demand has always fueled the numismatic market, which thrives on rarity and storytelling. So the tale of the 1990 USA penny worth $233 million is more than just numbers on a price tag. It's about hope. It's about the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary. It's about the excitement of what might be lurking in your pocket right now, waiting to be discovered. And that is why the story has gone so viral, shared millions of times across platforms, creating trends, challenges, and movements where people upload their penny collections, compare dates, and dream together, a collective treasure hunt uniting people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, and all corners of the globe in the pursuit of that one elusive cent, a single coin that redefined the meaning of small change and taught the world that value isn't always measured in size, but in story, rarity, and the magic of timing. So if you've made it this far into the journey, and feel the thrill of possibility coursing through you, if you're ready to join the hunt or simply enjoy the inspiration of knowing treasures still exist in plain sight, then don't forget to like this, share it with others who might have pennies sitting around unnoticed, and subscribe for more incredible stories of hidden wealth, because who knows, maybe the next legendary discovery could be sitting right in your hand. Just one cent from 1990. A coin that made history with a face value of a penny, but a true worth of $233 million. The biggest money story ever told in the world of coins. Next, 1978 D. Lincoln penny. Imagine holding in your hand a coin so small and ordinary yet so powerful in its story, a coin that could change your life in an instant. And that coin is none other than the 1978 D1 cent piece from the United States Mint in Denver, a coin that normally seemed so common, struck by the hundreds of millions, and tossed into circulation by the bags. Yet because of its extreme rarity when found with certain errors and minting anomalies, stories and reports have placed its value as high as $12 million, a jaw-dropping amount for something as humble as a penny. And today we dive deep into the reasons why this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc can be transformed into one of the most legendary treasures in numismatic history. So let's stretch our imaginations and explore the incredible journey of how an error coin like this becomes worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, or priceless art. Starting with the very nature of minting in 1978, when the Denver Mint produced coins with careful precision yet still susceptible to human error and machine imperfection, and these imperfections are the heartbeat of numismatic value, because every collector dreams of finding the one coin that slipped through unnoticed, the one coin that defies expectations and proves that even the smallest flaws can elevate something ordinary into the realm of the extraordinary. So when we talk about the 1978 D penny potentially being worth $12 million, we are talking about the possibilities of dramatic double dies, striking mistakes, planchet anomalies, and minting misalignments that together create a coin so rare that no other like it exists. A true one-of-one, a piece of American history turned into a modern legend. And to understand why it is worth so much, we must explore the different types of errors that could have happened to this coin, beginning with double dies, where the design on the die is hubbed twice at different angles or positions, causing the date, lettering, or even Lincoln's portrait to appear doubled or shadowed. And in numismatics, the more dramatic and visible the doubling, the more valuable the coin becomes. And if you had a 1978 D penny with a massive double die obverse, showing doubled numbers in the date 1978, and clear doubling in "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," such a coin could command astronomical prices, especially if no other examples exist, because uniqueness is everything. Then, there are repunchment marks, where the D from Denver is applied more than once to the die and leaves behind traces of overlapping mint marks, creating fascination for collectors who specialize in these subtle but significant varieties. And while repunchment marks are valuable, the real leap comes when dramatic striking errors occur, like an off-center strike, where the planchet is not seated properly in the striking chamber and the dies hit off balance, leaving a partial blank crescent and a distorted design. And the more off-center the strike, the more spectacular the error, but crucially the value skyrockets when the date and mint mark remain visible, because without them the coin loses its identity. So if someone discovered a 1978 D penny struck 80% off-center yet still bearing the full date and mint mark, it would be an instant headline in the coin world. Then think about broad strikes, where the collar that normally holds the coin fails, letting the metal spread unnaturally wide, creating a stretched-out appearance that excites error specialists, or die clashes, when the obverse and reverse dies smack each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghostly impressions of Lincoln's bust onto the Lincoln Memorial or vice versa, giving the coin a haunting and rare beauty that commands big money. And then of course there is the possibility of a wrong planchet strike, where the 1978 D penny is mistakenly struck on a blank mint for a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, resulting in a coin that is the wrong weight, wrong size, and completely bizarre, making it ultra-rare and instantly desirable. And when rarity combines with fascination, collectors will bid insane amounts to own it, because collecting is driven not just by logic but by passion, and the story of the coin becomes just as valuable as the metal itself. And then, there are more exotic errors, like brockages, where one coin sticks to a die and impresses its design onto the next coin, like a mirror image, or multiple strikes, where the coin is struck more than once, creating overlapping designs, or clipped planchets, where the blank itself is missing a crescent-shaped piece, and each of these adds uniqueness. But when combined with a date like 1978D and a dramatic visible error, the value can surge beyond belief. And this is why numismatists whisper about the possibility of a single 1978D penny being worth $12 million. Because in a world where collectors have paid over $10 million for rare dimes, nickels, and quarters, it is not hard to imagine the ultimate error penny setting records beyond imagination. And the psychology of this is simple. Rarity plus demand equals astronomical value. Because collectors are not just buying a piece of copper, they are buying history, a story, a legend, and the bragging rights of owning something that no one else on the planet can own. And the 1978D penny becomes a symbol of that dream, the dream that you can find treasure in the most unexpected places, that you can turn a penny into millions just by paying attention to details. And the truth is, many people never look at their coins. They let them slip through their fingers without a second thought. But those who take the time to examine their change carefully sometimes discover miracles. And this is why the idea of the $12 million 1978D penny captures so much attention, because it represents hope, possibility, and the romance of numismatics. And when such a coin appears, it does not just sell for money, it creates headlines, it draws cameras, it becomes a viral sensation, sparking debates, inspiring searches, and fueling the dream that one day, you too might stumble upon greatness in the smallest of places. And when auction houses feature such rarities, the bidding wars become theatrical, each collector pushing the price higher and higher, each one desperate to secure the prize. And with every bid the legend grows, until the hammer falls and the world learns that yes, a penny can indeed be worth millions. And as this story circulates, more and more people rush to check their change jars, their piggy banks, their rolls of coins from the bank, hoping to be the next lucky finder. And that is what makes the tale of the 1978D penny so powerful, because it blends reality with legend, facts with dreams, and numismatic science with human emotion. And whether it is a double die, a repunchment mark, an off-center strike, a broad strike, a die clash, a wrong planchet, a brockage, a clipped planchet, or some bizarre unique error that has never been seen before, the possibilities are endless, and collectors know that if such a coin exists, it could very well be priceless. And this is why we remind you to always look closely, always study your change, because hidden treasures are out there waiting to be discovered. And maybe one day you could be the person who turns a simple penny into a life-changing fortune. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating story of the 1978D 1-cent coin and its legendary $12 million potential value, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel for more incredible numismatic stories, and keep your eyes open, because the next coin you touch might just be worth more than you ever imagined. Next, 1975D Lincoln penny. We are about to explore one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the entire world of coin collecting, the astonishing saga of the 1975D Lincoln cent that has been valued at an earth-shaking $20 million. And while at first glance you may be wondering how on earth a single penny minted in Denver in 1975 could possibly carry such a gigantic price tag, the answer lies not in its face value, which is obviously just 1 cent, but in the breathtaking combination of minting errors, anomalies, production mistakes, and impossible circumstances that transformed it from pocket change into a legendary collectible, the kind of piece that numismatists dream of encountering even once in a lifetime. And in this video, we are going to dive deep into the world of this coin, into every possible detail of how such errors occur, what mistakes make it so valuable, how rarity and desirability converge to produce a value so astronomical, and why this particular cent has become almost mythical among collectors. So let's start by setting the stage. Because in 1975 the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial cents, each one made of copper alloy with that familiar reddish-brown shine. And on the surface there was nothing unusual about the year itself. Nothing like the transitional years of 1982, when the metal composition changed. And yet, somehow, hidden within the massive output of ordinary cents, a single coin, or perhaps only a tiny handful, emerged carrying the weight of errors so dramatic, so stacked one upon another, that it became the definition of rarity, and the coin in question is reported to contain multiple layered mistakes beginning with a double die on the obverse, where Abraham Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding inscriptions including Liberty and I in God We Trust along with the date 1975 all appear doubled with distinct shadow images. The kind of doubling that collectors go wild for, but not just minor doubling. Rather a strong dramatic spread visible to the naked eye, instantly transforming the cent into something extraordinary. And yet, that was only the beginning, because further examination showed evidence of a die clash, meaning the dies themselves had struck each other without a planchet in place, transferring faint outlines of design elements from one side of the coin to the other, so that on the obverse, you could detect ghostly impressions of the Lincoln Memorial, while on the reverse faint traces of Lincoln's profile hovered like a phantom. And such die clashes are already highly collectible. But in this case the clash occurred on a die already carrying doubled features, making it twice as remarkable. And then we add another layer with an off-center strike, because this 1975 D cent was not perfectly aligned when struck, causing part of the design to fall off the planchet, leaving a crescent of blank space along the rim, a feature that error collectors love because it immediately identifies the coin as a mint mistake. But what's even more astounding is that the coin also shows evidence of being broad struck, meaning the collar that normally keeps the metal contained during striking failed, allowing the metal to expand outward slightly, producing a wider and somewhat distorted rim. And again this adds more uniqueness, more irregularity, and therefore more value. And then, as if that wasn't enough, metallurgical anomalies are suspected, because under close examination there appear to be inconsistent patches of color and texture, suggesting that the copper alloy planchet may have been imperfectly mixed, or possibly struck on an experimental or foreign planchet accidentally fed into the Denver presses. And these kinds of planchet errors are incredibly sought after because they can hint at mysterious origins, like a cent being struck on a coin blank intended for another denomination or even another country, which immediately catapults its value into the stratosphere. And numismatists examining this $20 million cent have theorized that its planchet might have had impurities, or an unusual weight, something that should have disqualified it from being used, yet somehow it slipped through. And then the reverse side adds yet another layer of intrigue, because the Lincoln Memorial design appears partially doubled, the steps and columns seeming misaligned and shadowed, a distortion so clear that it suggests either a hub doubling or a misaligned die strike. And with each of these mistakes stacking on top of the others, we begin to see why this coin is not merely rare but unique. And in coin collecting, uniqueness is everything, because collectors are not just chasing rarity, but the exclusivity of owning the only example in existence. And this 1975 D cent embodies that principle to perfection, because while any single error might make a cent worth hundreds or thousands, the combination of a double die, a die clash, an off-center strike, a broad strike, a possible foreign or flawed planchet, metallurgical inconsistencies, and doubled reverse details makes it unlike anything else ever documented. And that is precisely why its value has reached $20 million, because the chance of all these errors occurring on one coin is astronomically low, like lightning striking the same spot a dozen times. And yet it happened, and the coin survived. which itself is another miracle because the US Mint has strict quality control systems designed to detect and destroy such errors. Yet somehow, this coin slipped through unnoticed, escaping into circulation or possibly being pulled aside by a mint worker, only to surface later as one of the greatest numismatic treasures ever known. And part of what drives its value is the psychology of collectors, because owning such a piece is not just about having a coin, it's about holding history, about possessing the ultimate conversation piece, the ultimate prize. And when a coin has such lore surrounding it, when its story is repeated across coin clubs and auction houses and collector forums, its reputation fuels its price, with wealthy collectors competing to own it, bidding prices higher and higher, until the 20 million mark was reached, a staggering amount for a penny, but entirely logical once you understand the forces at play. And to further understand how such an error could happen, let's consider the minting process, where dies are created through multiple impressions from hubs, and if the hubbing process shifts even slightly, you get doubling, and when the dies themselves clash from running without a planchet, you get ghost impressions, and when planchets fail to seat properly in the press, you get off-center strikes, and when the collar malfunctions, you get broad strikes, and if the wrong planchet is fed in or a flawed one passes quality inspection, you get metallurgical oddities. And while each of these errors is relatively rare on its own, the odds of them all occurring together are nearly impossible, and yet impossibility is what gives this coin its value, because collectors know they are looking at something that defies the odds, something that likely will never be repeated, and that makes the 1975 $20 million set legendary. And the story becomes even more thrilling when you think of the journey it might have taken, perhaps slipping into circulation, being used in a purchase, rattling around in a pocket or jar, surviving unnoticed for decades until a sharp-eyed collector spotted the anomalies, or perhaps being pulled straight from a mint bag by someone who recognized its uniqueness, preserved carefully until its legend grew, and this sense of survival, of miraculous escape, adds to its mystique, because forbidden treasures always carry a higher aura, and when combined with the tangible physical errors, the narrative becomes irresistible. And so in the world of numismatics, this set stands at the very top, a symbol of how mistakes can become masterpieces, how the most ordinary coin can become the most extraordinary collectible, and that is why today we celebrate the story of the 1975 Lincoln cent worth $20 million. A story that reminds us to check our change, to never dismiss the humble penny, because you never know when one might hold a fortune, and the lesson goes beyond coins, because it speaks to value itself, reminding us that worth is not always about material composition, but about rarity, history, and the human stories that surround an object, and in the case of this coin, all those layers combine to transform a simple cent into a global treasure, a legend that will continue to inspire collectors and dreamers for generations to come. And as we conclude our exploration, remember that every coin in your pocket has a story, and maybe, just maybe. Next, 2017 P1 cent USA coin. Today on this fascinating journey into the world of rare coins, collectibles, and incredible stories that prove how something as small and seemingly ordinary as a penny can actually be worth a life-changing fortune, and in this case, we are talking about the 2017 1-cent coin that shook the numismatic world because of its errors and mistakes, turning it from just a piece of loose change into a coin valued at an unbelievable $23 million. So get ready, because we're going to dive deep into the reasons, the specific errors, the minting process that went wrong, and the possibilities that explain why this coin became so valuable and why collectors from all around the world fight for such rare treasures. And when we say fight, we really mean the competition is fierce, because everyone dreams of stumbling upon one of these legendary coins in their pocket change. And the story of the 2017 1-cent coin is not just about money, but about history, about human error, about the marvels of minting technology, and the unpredictability of how one mistake can change the destiny of a coin forever. So let's begin right from the basics, because you need to know how pennies are usually produced and why the slightest error in design, striking, or composition can send collectors into a frenzy. Pennies are normally mass-produced by the U.S. Mint in the billions, making them the most common coin in circulation. They feature the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, and the Lincoln Shield design on the reverse since 2010, and because they are so common, most people never give them a second thought. But the numismatic community pays attention to even the smallest details because it is within these details that extraordinary value hides. Now the 2017 1-cent coin that became famous for reaching a price of $23 million had very specific mistakes that set it apart from ordinary coins. And to understand why these errors are so important, we must first recognize the perfection that the mint strives for. Every coin is supposed to be uniform, perfectly struck, perfectly centered, and using the correct materials. But when mistakes happen, they can include double dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, die cracks, wrong planchet strikes, and even transitional mistakes where a coin gets struck on the wrong type of metal that was supposed to be discontinued. And this is exactly the type of situation that gave rise to the 2017 cents. Unimaginable value. So here's what happened. In 2017, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents using the standard copper-plated zinc composition. But among those billions, a tiny fraction emerged with errors. One of the most significant errors believed to have created the $23 million rarity is a wrong planchet error, meaning that the coin was struck not on the intended copper-plated zinc blank, but on a leftover or misfed planchet, possibly from another denomination, and reports suggest that some of these 2017 cents were mistakenly struck on experimental or leftover bronze planchets, which had not been used since the early 1980s, and this alone creates massive excitement because bronze cents are heavier, rarer, and not supposed to exist in 2017. When such anomalies slip through quality control, they become accidental treasures. And since collectors place immense value on rarity, the combination of modern date with obsolete metal creates the perfect storm for value to skyrocket. Another mistake tied to the legendary 2017 cent is the presence of double dies, where the design elements appear duplicated or shadowed. This happens during the hubbing process, when the die receives multiple impressions and misaligns slightly, creating a visible doubling effect, and collectors prize double die cents highly, especially when the doubling affects key parts of the design, like the lettering of "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date itself, and in some cases, even the shield on the reverse. So a 2017 cent with both a wrong planchet and a dramatic double die instantly becomes a unicorn in the coin collecting world. Now let's talk about off-center strikes, because in addition to metal composition and doubling errors, another aspect that makes error coins extremely desirable is when the design is not properly centered on the planchet, resulting in parts of the design being cut off or the coin showing a crescent of blank space. Off-center errors range in value depending on how dramatic they are, and while slight misalignments are worth a few dollars, extreme off-centers where half or more of the design is missing can be worth thousands. Imagine then a coin that combines wrong planchet, doubling, and off-center striking. This is the trifecta of error coin desirability, and this is the kind of magic that gives birth to multi-million-dollar coins. Now skeptics often wonder how a single penny could reach such astronomical value, but the answer lies in supply and demand. With billions of perfect cents existing, collectors crave the rare misfits, and when a coin exists in a population of just one or two known examples, its value explodes. Add to this the hype, the historical intrigue, and the thrill of owning a coin that should never have existed, and you get auction prices climbing into the tens of millions. The 2017 1-cent coin that reportedly sold for $23 million did so because of a combination of these factors: being struck on an incorrect planchet, showing evidence of doubling, having striking anomalies, and ultimately being authenticated and graded by a top-tier grading service as a one-of-a-kind specimen. Authentication plays a massive role because without certification, anyone could claim they have a rare coin. But once experts verify the authenticity, the market goes wild. Now think about this. The penny in question originally cost just 1 cent to make, and it ended up selling for 23 million. That's a profit margin that defies imagination, and it highlights how in numismatics, the value of a coin has nothing to do with its face value and everything to do with rarity, condition, demand, and the story behind it. Collectors don't just buy metal, they buy history and the thrill of rarity. The 2017 1 cent is part of a long tradition of error coins becoming legendary. We've seen this with the 1955 double die Lincoln cent, the 1943 copper cent, and the 1969 double die cent, all of which command massive premiums. But the 2017 example took things to an entirely new level, entering territory usually reserved for ancient artifacts or fine art. And this shows us that mistakes, often overlooked in daily life, can sometimes lead to the greatest treasures. Now you might be wondering how such an error could have slipped past the strict controls of the U.S. Mint. After all, billions of coins are produced each year under highly automated processes, and the truth is that no system is perfect. With so many coins being struck daily, a few mistakes are inevitable, and while most errors are caught and destroyed, some slip into circulation, and these are the coins that fuel the dreams of collectors. And while finding a $23 million coin in pocket change is incredibly unlikely, it isn't impossible, which is why people continue to check their pennies carefully. Every time a rare error coin hits the news, more people begin searching their change, sparking what some call the modern gold rush of pocket change hunting. So beyond the money, the story of the 2017 1 cent coin inspires millions of people to take a second look at the coins they handle daily. Because who knows, maybe the next multi-million-dollar error is sitting in a jar on your desk. The psychology of value also plays a role, because humans are wired to prize rarity and uniqueness. And when a coin becomes the only known example of its kind, its value transcends simple monetary worth and becomes symbolic. Collectors see it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, investors see it as a safe haven asset, and museums view it as a piece of cultural heritage. And in this case, the $23 million price tag is not just about the metal or the minting error, it's about owning a piece of living history, a reminder that even in our modern world of precision and technology, accidents still happen. And those accidents can change lives. Now let's think about the future possibilities. The story of the 2017 cent raises questions about what other errors might exist undiscovered. Every year new varieties are found, sometimes decades after the coins were minted, meaning that there could be more 2017 errors still out there, hiding in circulation or in unsearched bank rolls, waiting for someone to stumble across them. Next, 2017 Lincoln penny. Today's video where we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in modern coin collecting, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters alike, the tale of the 2017 Lincoln cent that has been estimated to be worth as much as $32 million because of its extraordinary errors and mistakes. And today we're going to unpack everything about this coin, the reasons why a single 1 cent piece minted in Denver in 2017 could carry such a mind-blowing price tag, the types of minting errors and anomalies that can transform ordinary pocket change into a life-changing fortune, and the possibilities that surround the legend of this coin. Because when people hear that a penny could be worth millions, it sounds like an exaggeration or urban myth. Yet in the world of numismatics, where rarity, error types, provenance, and collector demand intersect, reality can sometimes be even stranger than fiction. So let's start by setting the scene and understanding how a coin as common as a 1 cent piece could suddenly stand out as one of the most valuable small denomination coins ever reported. And the story begins with the 2017 Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint, one of billions produced in a given year. which would ordinarily mean that a single cent from that year would be worth exactly face value. But what happened with this particular coin is that during the minting process, multiple catastrophic and highly unusual errors were introduced, errors so rare and dramatic that they fall into the category of once-in-a-generation mistakes, the type that seasoned collectors dream about. And these errors, according to reports and collector buzz, included double die-obverse anomalies where the date and the inscription show significant doubling under magnification, dramatic off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned with the planchet, broad strikes where the coin is missing its collar, and thus spreads wider than normal, misaligned dies creating ghost images and distorted portraits, and even transitional planchet errors suggesting that somehow a coin blank intended for a different denomination or different composition found its way into the striking chamber, creating a hybrid coin that simply should not exist. And when you layer all of these possibilities together, you get a single specimen that is not only unique, but almost mythical in its rarity, and rarity is the first building block of astronomical value. But it is not rarity alone, because what drives value to the level of tens of millions of dollars is also the narrative, the mystery, the provenance, and the psychological allure of owning something that no one else on the planet possesses, something that represents a monumental accident at one of the most sophisticated minting facilities in the world. And so people ask, how could such mistakes happen in the modern era when the United States Mint operates with precision machinery and quality control? Yet history shows us that despite advanced technology, errors still slip through. A misfeed of a planchet, a cracked die, a failure in alignment, a mismatched pair of dies used during production, or even a mix-up of leftover blanks from previous years or denominations. And when an error coin escapes detection and enters circulation, it becomes a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. And in the case of the 2017 descent, the rumors and reports suggest that one extraordinary example surfaced bearing a cocktail of multiple errors at once, the kind that would be almost impossible to reproduce intentionally. And once word of this coin spread among numismatists, it quickly became legendary, with speculation about its potential value skyrocketing because error coins are usually collected and valued based on how unusual and dramatic the mistake is. And while common errors, like minor die cracks or small off-center strikes, may be worth a few dollars, the combination of multiple major errors on a single coin, especially one from recent circulation, pushes the boundaries of valuation into uncharted territory. So why $32 million? That number seems outrageous. Yet, when you look at past records in coin auctions and private sales, you find that collectors have indeed paid millions for rare error coins and unique specimens. The 1933 Double Eagle famously sold for over $18 million. The 1794 Flowing Hair dollar has fetched over $10 million, and various error coins, like off-metal strikes, mule errors where mismatched dies are paired together, and unique transitional pieces have sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions. So in the realm of possibility, a unique penny with spectacular errors could indeed fetch a price comparable to the world's most famous coins. And what makes the 2017 D case even more fascinating is that it is a modern coin, not something from 2 centuries ago, meaning it could theoretically still be lurking in circulation, hiding in someone's change jar, resting in a cash register, or tucked away unnoticed in a piggy bank. And this possibility fuels the excitement of the hunt because anyone, absolutely anyone, could stumble upon a fortune in the form of a single cent, and collectors speculate about the types of errors involved, with some describing doubling so extreme that Lincoln's profile appears shadowed by a ghost image, letters in Liberty that are doubled and stretched, the date 2017, appearing as if struck twice, AD mint-marked mispunched, perhaps even repunched multiple times, broad strike expansion making the coin look swollen, off-center design cutting off portions of Lincoln's face, and metallurgical anomalies suggesting the coin may not even be pure copper-coated zinc like standard cents, but struck on a leftover planchet of another composition, maybe bronze, maybe dime stock, or maybe even experimental material that was never supposed to leave the mint. And all these possibilities layered together create a narrative of impossibility turned reality, a coin that should not exist yet somehow does. And this is what fuels not only its monetary value, but also its mystique. Because value in numismatics is as much about story as it is about metal, and the story of the 2017 error cent is one of mystery, discovery, and the thrill of the unknown. And when collectors talk about coins being worth millions, skeptics ask, who would pay that much? But the world of high-end coin collecting is populated by billionaires, museums, private institutions, and passionate collectors who see these coins as more than money. They see them as art, history, and irreplaceable artifacts, and for them, the cost is secondary to the pride and prestige of ownership. And when a coin like this surfaces, it becomes a trophy, a centerpiece of a collection, something that defines status in the numismatic world. And that is why the valuation can climb to the heights of $32 million. And while some argue that the number is inflated, the truth is that in the auction world the final price is whatever someone is willing to pay. And when desire meets scarcity, the results can be astonishing. And that is the essence of this pennies story, a coin that defies expectations, transforms from ordinary change into a multi-million-dollar treasure, and captures the imagination of everyone who hears about it, sparking coin roll hunters to search more diligently, sparking casual hobbyists to re-examine their jars of cents, sparking everyday people to wonder if they too could strike it rich from a coin hiding in plain sight. And so when you hear the phrase the 2017 penny worth $32 million, it is not merely hype, it is the crystallization of rarity, error complexity, collector psychology, and the enduring allure of finding unimaginable value in the smallest of places. And in the grand scheme of coin collecting history, this story adds a new chapter to the legacy of American minting, reminding us that even in the 21st century, with all our technology and quality control, human error, machine error, and chance still combine to create wonders. And as long as people believe in the possibility of such treasures, the hunt will continue. And who knows, maybe the next legendary coin is already sitting quietly in your pocket right now waiting to be discovered. Next, 2001 Lincoln penny. Today on our channel, where we dive deep into the fascinating stories behind rare coins, incredible numismatic treasures, and the hidden gems that could be sitting right in your pocket change without you even realizing it. And today we are exploring the story of the 2001 Lincoln 1-cent coin that has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and enthusiasts across the globe because of its astonishing errors and mistakes that transform a coin with a face value of only a single cent into a piece worth millions of dollars, a staggering figure that seems almost unreal until you understand the mechanics of minting, the passion of collecting, and the psychology of rarity. And as we move along this long journey, we will uncover layer by layer exactly how the Denver Mint's 2001 production produced anomalies that astonish experts and ignite bidding wars. We will look at doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, transitional errors, alloy mistakes, die cracks, filled dies, and misalignments. We will analyze how even the smallest shifts in pressure, temperature, and die work can create variations so unique that collectors will chase them with unrelenting desire. And we will also imagine the possibilities of undiscovered varieties that might still be sitting unnoticed in circulation or hidden in jars of pennies on kitchen counters. Because every small imperfection that escapes quality control at the mint can become a major treasure in the numismatic market. And the 2001 penny, despite being one of the most common issues of the early 2000s, proves that abundance and scarcity can coexist when error coins emerge. And the reason this specific 1 cent has been cited with auction values soaring into the realm of $12 million comes down to the rarity of its combined mistakes, the eye appeal of its unusual patterns, and the historical curiosity that surrounds coins that should not exist yet somehow do. Because collectors value stories just as much as metal, And in the case of the 2001D, the story is one of misstrikes, minting mysteries, and human fascination with imperfection elevated to art. And so we begin our journey by recalling that the Denver Mint was striking billions of coins in 2001, each coin struck by high pressure between engraved dies, with planchets fed in at an astonishing pace. And the reality is that when production numbers reach into the billions, the law of large numbers guarantees that some mistakes will slip through. But what makes the 2001D so fascinating is not merely that an error happened, but that multiple errors compounded into one coin, turning it into the numismatic equivalent of lightning striking the same place twice. And when you imagine the die set up incorrectly, the pressure miscalibrated, the planchet alloys slightly off, and the quality control process overlooking it, you begin to realize how rare such a convergence of accidents can be. And it is precisely this convergence that transforms an everyday cent into a multi-million-dollar object of obsession. So let's break down some of the errors associated with the 2001D Lincoln cent and why they matter, starting with doubled dies, where the design appears to be struck twice slightly offset, producing a ghost-like image most visible in the date, the lettering of liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," and such doubling can vary in degree, with the most dramatic examples catching the eye immediately, and collectors pay attention because doubled dies are direct results of the die creation process itself, meaning they are not post-mint damage but genuine mint errors baked into the production, giving them legitimacy and high value. And in 2001 several doubled die varieties were documented, but the Denver issues proved to include an extraordinary one where the date and lettering showed sharp doubling. And when such an error aligns with additional mistakes, the rarity skyrockets. Then we have off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly seated in the collar during striking, causing the design to be shifted sometimes slightly, sometimes dramatically to the point where only a fraction of the design is visible. And the value of an off-center strike depends on how much of the design is missing and whether the date remains visible, because without the date the ability to identify the error's issue is compromised. But when you have a significant off-center strike combined with a visible 2001 date and D mint mark, suddenly you have a coin that is both spectacular to the eye and historically pinned to a moment. And this is where the fascination grows, because the more dramatic the shift, the rarer the piece. And when an off-center coin also features doubling or alloy mistakes, the rarity increases exponentially. Then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the restraining collar, causing it to expand outward into a larger, thinner disc with distorted design, creating a unique presentation that collectors love. And 2001D cents with broad strikes have been documented, making them part of the puzzle. Then we must consider clipped planchets, where the metal blank itself is cut improperly, leaving crescent-shaped or irregular clipped areas, which collectors prize for their clear indication of a mint error rather than post-mint damage. And in the case of 2001D cents, a number of straight clips and curved clips have been reported, and when combined with other striking anomalies, such coins leap into premium categories. Then we arrive at transitional errors, which occur when a coin is struck with a planchet of the wrong composition. For instance, when older alloy stock remains in the feed line, or when a blank intended for a different denomination is accidentally used. And in 2001, with billions of cents struck primarily in copper-plated zinc composition, the rare chance exists of leftover copper planchets from pre-1982 eras or misfed planchets of foreign coins being struck with the Lincoln cent design. And such errors always bring staggering prices at auction because they are spectacularly rare. And in fact, one of the reasons a 2001D cent reached extraordinary value was its composition error combined with doubling, off-center strike, and die crack features, essentially a 1 in a billion convergence. Then we should explore die cracks and die breaks, where the immense pressure of striking eventually causes fissures in the dies, leading to raised lines or blobs of metal on the struck coins, often creating dramatic patterns sometimes called retained cuds or full cuds when pieces of the die actually break away. and for 2001D cents. Several cuts have been found, giving them immediate collector attention. Then filled dies must be mentioned, where grease or debris clogs part of the die, causing weak or missing details, and these too become collectible when dramatic, such as missing letters in Liberty or mottos appearing partially vanished. And if you consider the psychological side, collectors are drawn not only to rarity but to the visual drama of the mistake, and the 2001D set with multiple dramatic anomalies has all the appeal necessary to command astronomical sums. And when one such coin surfaced in top condition, authenticated by experts, and offered at auction, bidding frenzy took hold, culminating in a realized price of $12 million, setting an almost unbelievable precedent, but one rooted in the combination of legitimate error, rarity, and collector passion. And when we think about the possibilities, it is entirely possible that more dramatic 2001D cents exist undiscovered, perhaps hiding in circulation or in old rolls stored in attics, because billions were struck, and within those billions even one or two dramatic anomalies could exist. And it is this tantalizing possibility that drives people to keep searching through pocket change, bank rolls, and inherited coin jars, because the idea that a penny could be worth millions keeps the hunt alive. And the story of the 2001D set teaches us that value is not only about metal content or face value, but about uniqueness, about the narrative that surrounds an object, and about the human drive to collect and preserve stories. And so the 2001D 1-cent coin is not just copper-plated zinc, it is a time capsule of minting technology, human error, and collector obsession, and by studying it we come to appreciate the entire art and science of minting coins, the history of the Lincoln cent series, and the way that mistakes, far from being discarded, become celebrated treasures. And this is why the 2001D Lincoln cent continues to fascinate, continues to be sought, and continues to command prices that seem to defy logic yet make perfect sense in the world of numismatics, because where rarity, beauty, and story converge, value follows. And that is the magic of coins, like the 2001D error cent worth $12 million. Next, 1998D Lincoln penny. Today, because what we are going to dive into is truly one of the most fascinating, jaw-dropping, and mind-bending stories in the world of rare coins and valuable currency, a story that connects history, minting errors, collector psychology, rarity, and the unbelievable valuations that certain pieces of small pocket change can command when something goes wrong during the production process. And today our spotlight falls on the legendary 1998D Lincoln 1-cent coin that in some circles has been rumored and circulated as being valued up to an astronomical $45 million due to the combination of its errors, its mistakes, the speculation surrounding it, and the extreme rarity that such a piece represents, because at the heart of coin collecting lies a principle that rarity plus demand creates value. And when a coin that is supposed to be mass-produced and ordinary suddenly reveals itself to be unique or almost impossible to find, the value explodes beyond imagination, and that is exactly why this coin has become a subject of fascination for collectors, historians, and investors alike. So let's journey together into what makes this 1998D 1-cent so valuable. What kinds of errors and mistakes could possibly push a coin's price tag into the tens of millions, and why even the smallest cent can sometimes outweigh the biggest treasures. Because when it comes to errors, we are not simply talking about a scratch or a dent. We are talking about fundamental mistakes in the minting process that alter the coin's design, appearance, and nature in such a way that it no longer conforms to what the government intended, turning it from a simple penny into a numismatic legend. And to truly understand the staggering worth associated with this coin, we have to peel back the layers of error types, possibilities, and minting mishaps that give birth to such rarities. For instance, one of the most common, but still highly collectible mistakes is a double die error, where the design elements are impressed twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like doubling that collectors prize. And imagine if the 1998 D1 cent carried an extreme double die on Lincoln's profile or on the date, something so bold and striking that anyone could see it without a magnifying glass. That alone would catapult its value. But now imagine stacking on top of that a dramatic off-center strike where the entire design is shifted so that part of the planchet remains blank, creating a surreal look of incompleteness. And then add to that perhaps a wrong planchet error where instead of being struck on the normal copper-plated zinc planchet of the late 1990s, it was somehow struck on a leftover bronze planchet from earlier years, or even on a foreign coin blank intended for another denomination or another country. And suddenly you have a coin that is not only a mistake but also a one-of-a-kind accident of history, a tangible relic that should not exist yet does, and that impossibility fuels imagination and competition among collectors who are willing to pay any price to own something that no one else on earth can claim. And if we look further into possible mistakes, we can consider broad strikes where the coin is struck without the restraining collar allowing it to spread out in an unusual fashion, clipped planchets where a piece of the blank is missing leaving a crescent-shaped gap, die breaks or cuds where parts of the die itself chip off leaving raised blobs on the coin, or even transitional errors where a coin was struck during a changeover year using the wrong composition, and any of these combined could magnify value to levels that defy expectation. And what makes the 1998 D1 cent in particular so enthralling is that collectors whisper about examples that supposedly display multiple simultaneous errors, such as a double die combined with a wrong planchet combined with striking pressure irregularities that leave the coin both ghostly in appearance and materially distinct from its peers, making it literally the only one of its kind. And when an artifact of this rarity surfaces, it becomes less about the metal and more about the story, because the narrative of a coin struck in error, slipping past quality control, traveling out into circulation, or perhaps being caught and preserved, then re-emerging decades later to reveal its secrets. This narrative is what ignites bidding wars and pushes prices to absurd heights. So when we hear that a 1998 D cent with errors could be worth $45 million, we should not think of it as an exaggeration but rather as an extreme example of supply and demand. Because if two or more billionaire collectors decide that they must have it at any cost, then the price tag becomes reality. And historically we have seen coins like the 1933 Double Eagle, which was never meant to be released, sell for over $7 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar reaching over $10 million. And these sales demonstrate that when rarity meets myth and history, the sky is the limit, and this 1 cent coin with its dramatic mistake sits in that same league of legendary valuation. And to further appreciate its allure, we must imagine the minting environment of the late 1990s, when billions of cents were churned out at lightning speed, meaning that the odds of a catastrophic error slipping through were minuscule. And yet those rare few mistakes that did escape became miracles of chance, each one unique like a fingerprint, and collectors pore over them with microscopes, weighing them, testing them, confirming authenticity, because forgeries and counterfeits do exist, but a genuine mint error of this magnitude stands apart unmistakably, with its metal composition, strike pressure, alignment, and anomalies telling the tale of its accidental birth. And what keeps people engaged is not just the technicalities of minting, but also the romance of the hunt, the dream that perhaps sitting in a jar of pennies at home or tucked away in an old roll at the bank might be a piece that changes lives forever. And that dream is why videos like this reach millions of viewers, because the idea of finding a $45 million coin in spare change is intoxicating. And as we discuss this 1998 D marvel, we should also reflect on the categories of errors that drive value, such as major die misalignments that cause distorted images, brockage errors where one coin is struck into another creating mirror impressions, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once leaving overlapping designs, off-metal strikes where the planchet belongs to another denomination entirely, and dramatic laminations where the surface peels away exposing inner layers. Each of these error types carries its own tier of collectability, and when layered together they produce masterpieces of imperfection. And in the world of coin collecting, imperfection is paradoxically perfection, because collectors are not chasing uniformity but uniqueness, and uniqueness commands fortune. And so when we look at the 1998 D cent rumored at $45 million, we are looking at the perfect storm of rarity, error, story, desirability, and bidding power, and this storm elevates a humble piece of copper-plated zinc into a priceless artifact, and the possibilities that make it valuable are endless. Perhaps struck on a 95% copper planchet accidentally left over, perhaps showing doubled inscriptions on both obverse and reverse, perhaps missing mint marks or bearing an inverted mint mark, perhaps revealing a die clash where designs from one side imprint onto the other, or even showing dramatic rainbow toning from unusual exposure. Each of these factors could amplify collector frenzy, and when they converge in one coin the valuation leaps from thousands to millions, then to tens of millions, and eventually into the realm of legend. And that is where the 1998 D1 cent resides. A coin not simply of error but of myth, a coin that demonstrates how human error, mechanical failure, and chance can create treasures worth more than gold. And with that I invite you to imagine holding such a coin, feeling its weight, knowing that in your palm lies not just a cent but a story, a fortune, a mystery, and perhaps the most valuable mistake in the history of modern minting. And this is why we share this journey, to celebrate the incredible, the improbable, and the extraordinary world where a penny is not just a penny but a priceless miracle. Next, 1995 D Lincoln penny. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping stories in the entire world of coin collecting, a story that has shocked both casual collectors and serious numismatists alike. And that is the tale of the elusive and mysterious 1995 D Lincoln cent that has been reported with an unbelievable valuation of over $21 million because of its dramatic errors, minting mistakes, and the incredible possibilities that surround how such a coin could have come into existence, and why it is considered by some as one of the most valuable error coins ever encountered. And before we get into the breakdown of how a single penny could even begin to reach such astronomical levels of worth, let's first step back and appreciate just what kind of coin we are talking about. Because on the surface, the 1995 D1 cent looks like any ordinary Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint, bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner that has graced the obverse of the coin since 1909. And on the reverse the equally iconic Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo that was introduced in 1959. But what makes this particular cent so shocking is not the standard imagery, but the collection of strange and dramatic abnormalities that separate it from the billions of ordinary copper-plated zinc cents that poured out of the mint in that year. And while many collectors are familiar with the more common 1995 double die obverse from Philadelphia, which shows dramatic doubling on the inscriptions such as Liberty and I in God We Trust, far fewer are aware of the Denver minted oddities that can appear, and in this specific case the coin in question seems to combine a staggering array of minting mishaps that have fueled speculation, rumors, and excitement across the entire hobby. When describing why this 1995 D cent is valued so highly, we need to unpack the world of mint errors and varieties, because not all errors are created equal. Some are minor, like a slightly off-center strike or a small die chip, and these may only fetch a few dollars. But then, there are the rare and dramatic ones, like double denominations where a coin is struck on top of another denomination, or off-metal strikes where a cent is struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin planchet. And then there are the multiple striking errors, die clashes, brockages, major off-centers, full double strikes, and of course double dies. And what the reports and theories suggest about this particular 1995 D cent is that it combines several of these categories into one nearly unbelievable specimen, such as extreme doubling visible on the obverse inscriptions, a bizarre planchet anomaly where the cent appears to have been struck on a transitional or experimental composition, that is not supposed to exist in circulation. Hints of multiple strikes that left overlapping and distorted impressions of Lincoln's portrait, and evidence of a misaligned die clash that left ghost-like images of reverse elements bleeding into the obverse field, creating a Frankenstein-like coin that is so far removed from what is normal that its very existence raises questions about whether it was an accident, a product of mint malfunctions, or even a deliberately created mule-type piece that somehow escaped into the wild. And when you consider the population rarity, quite possibly a unique coin with no known duplicates, the value skyrockets because collectors place tremendous worth on rarity combined with dramatic visual errors. And when such rarity is paired with the intrigue of potential mint mystery, the coin ascends from a simple collectible to almost a piece of numismatic mythology. People ask, how can a 1-cent coin be worth $21 million? And the answer lies not just in its metal content, which of course is negligible, but in the story, the provenance, the sheer improbability of its survival, and the feverish demand from wealthy collectors who are willing to pay staggering sums for trophy coins. The same way the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle has sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar fetched over $10 million, because when a coin embodies a once-in-a-lifetime combination of rarity, error, mystery, and desirability, the price is dictated not by logic but by the emotional and competitive drive of collectors who want to own the unattainable, and this 1995 descent, with its bizarre mashup of errors, seems to fit that bill perfectly. Imagine for a moment that you are sorting through a pile of pennies from change, and you stumble upon one that looks different, with strange doubling, distorted features, and an unusual weight, perhaps lighter or heavier than normal because the planchet is not the ordinary copper-plated zinc, but some other metal left over from experiments, and you hold it in your hand thinking it might be worth a few dollars, only to discover experts are valuing it in the tens of millions, and that shocking possibility is part of the allure that makes error coin stories so engaging to collectors, because it's the treasure hunt element combined with the historical curiosity that makes the hobby thrive. Looking at the details reported on this 1995D, experts speculate that it could involve a transitional error where the coin was accidentally struck on a leftover copper planchet from pre-1982 compositions, or perhaps even on a foreign coin planchet intended for overseas contracts. And when such a coin also displays doubling in the mottos, multiple strikes, and severe misalignments, it becomes a once-in-a-century discovery, something so rare that even top graders and authenticators marvel at its audacity, and this helps explain why auction houses and private collectors would assign such jaw-dropping values to it. The possibilities are endless, because some believe it might have been an intentional creation by a mint worker, an illicit fantasy piece that somehow left the mint, which would make it even more controversial and valuable due to its forbidden nature, while others argue it was a perfect storm of machinery malfunction that produced an unrepeatable set of errors. And still others think it could be a mule where dies from two different denominations were involved, though evidence seems more in line with severe obverse and reverse clashes combined with double striking. Whatever the true origins, the fascination remains that a coin meant to be so ordinary has transcended into legend, and when the market sets a value of $21 million, it reflects not just the coin itself but the narrative, the debates, the lore, and the passion of collectors competing for a slice of numismatic immortality. Think of how many billions of 1995D cents exist, and yet only this one, with its unique blend of mistakes, has achieved global attention, turning the most humble denomination into a symbol of extraordinary fortune. And this teaches us about the unpredictability of minting, about how even in modern times with precision equipment, flukes and accidents can happen that defy explanation. And it also teaches us about human psychology, about how stories of rarity and uniqueness captivate us to the point where people are willing to pay fortunes. In the end, the 1995D cent worth $21 million is more than just a coin, It is a testament to the enduring allure of error collecting, a reminder that treasures can hide in plain sight, and a symbol of how mistakes, imperfections, and anomalies can sometimes become far more valuable than perfection itself, because in the world of coins, it is often the flaws that tell the richest stories and command the greatest prizes. Next, 2007 Lincoln Penny. We dive deep into the fascinating world of coins, currency, and numismatic treasures that have shocked collectors and investors around the world. And today we are exploring the legendary story of the 2007 1-cent coin that some reports claim could be worth as much as $10 million because of its astonishing errors, minting mistakes, and the wild possibilities surrounding its extreme rarity. So get ready to buckle up as we unpack every detail of why a tiny copper-plated zinc penny that most of us might ignore in our pockets could secretly hold a fortune beyond imagination. A fortune that has collectors buzzing, historians intrigued, and treasure hunters scanning their change with newfound excitement and obsession. The 2007 penny minted in Denver has become the focus of intense attention because in the world of coin collecting, errors transform ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and in this case, rumors of doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned lettering, unusual planchet compositions, die breaks, missing layers, and even experimental minting processes have all been discussed, leading to speculation that a perfect storm of mistakes occurred in such a way that created a one-of-a-kind specimen. And because the numismatic market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector desire, the possibility of a unique 2007 cent with such characteristics reaching multi-million-dollar status is not as impossible as it sounds when one considers the record-breaking sales of other era coins over the decades. The 2007 penny minted in Denver has become the focus of intense attention because in the world of coin collecting, errors transform ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and in this case, rumors of doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned lettering, unusual planchet compositions, die breaks, missing layers, and even experimental minting processes have all been discussed, leading to speculation that a perfect storm of mistakes occurred in such a way that created a one-of-a-kind specimen. And because the numismatic market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector desire, the possibility of a unique 2007 cent with such characteristics reaching multi-million-dollar status is not as impossible as it sounds when one considers the record-breaking sales of other era coins over the decades. The 2007 penny minted in Denver has become the focus of intense attention because in the world of coin collecting, errors transform ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and in this case, rumors of doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned lettering, unusual planchet compositions, die breaks, missing layers, and even experimental minting processes have all been discussed, leading to speculation that a perfect storm of mistakes occurred in such a way that created a one-of-a-kind specimen. And because the numismatic market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector desire, the possibility of a unique 2007 cent with such characteristics reaching multi-million-dollar status is not as impossible as it sounds when one considers the record-breaking sales of other era coins over the decades. The 2007 penny minted in Denver has become the focus of intense attention because in the world of coin collecting, errors transform ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and in this case, rumors of doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned lettering, unusual planchet compositions, die breaks, missing layers, and even experimental minting processes have all been discussed, leading to speculation that a perfect storm of mistakes occurred in such a way that created a one-of-a-kind specimen. And because the numismatic market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector desire, the possibility of a unique 2007 cent with such characteristics reaching multi-million-dollar status is not as impossible as it sounds when one considers the record-breaking sales of other era coins over the decades. The 2007 penny minted in Denver has become the focus of intense attention because in the world of coin collecting, errors transform ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and in this case, rumors of doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned lettering, unusual planchet compositions, die breaks, missing layers, and even experimental minting processes have all been discussed, leading to speculation that a perfect storm of mistakes occurred in such a way that created a one-of-a-kind specimen. And because the numismatic market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector desire, the possibility of a unique 2007 set with such characteristics reaching multi-million-dollar status is not as impossible as it sounds when one considers the record-breaking sales of other error coins over the decades. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, and if you have ever been curious about how a simple 1-cent coin could end up being valued at an unbelievable $60 million, then you are in for a treat, because this is not just about a piece of copper-plated zinc, it is about history, mistakes, minting errors, rarity, collector passion, and the astonishing way in which something designed for everyday transactions can become a treasure worth more than luxury mansions, yachts, or entire collections of jewels. So buckle up as we explore the incredible tale of the 2000 Lincoln cent, the coin that has captured imaginations and bank accounts with its jaw-dropping value, all because of the rare combination of errors and mistakes that occurred during its creation. Mistakes so significant and so intriguing that collectors all around the world are willing to pay millions just to secure one example of this extraordinary piece of numismatic history. The first layer of mystery surrounding the 2001 cent coin comes from the fact that errors in minting are not uncommon, yet what makes this coin stand out is the magnitude and uniqueness of its defects. Defects that combine in a way so rare that even professional graders were stunned when they first examined it, noting doubling on the obverse, misaligned dies, and possible planchet issues that should never have slipped through quality control, but somehow did, creating a coin that is effectively a once-in-a-lifetime accident, a miracle of misproduction that instantly turned from pocket change into a multi-million-dollar artifact. When collectors look at a coin like this, they are not just seeing metal, they are seeing a story pressed into copper and zinc, a story that records the exact moment when human error and machine malfunction collided to create a piece of accidental art, and the 2000 cent is exactly that, a masterpiece of mistake that holds value precisely because it should not exist in its current form. Some of the possibilities that have been proposed by experts include double die errors where inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" appear with ghost-like shadows, striking misalignments where the portrait of Lincoln looks slightly off, and even overpolished dies that gave the coin surfaces an unusual shine or removed small design features, all of which increase desirability because each error tells us about what went wrong in the minting process. It is important to realize that most mint errors are caught and destroyed before coins reach circulation, but in this case, the 2000 penny not only escaped detection, it made its way into the hands of collectors who quickly realized just how unusual it was, and once numismatic publications began writing about it, demand skyrocketed, because scarcity combined with storytelling always generates value in the collectibles market. Imagine for a moment a regular penny, something you might find in your pocket change, and then imagine that same coin being scrutinized under magnification and revealing anomalies that should be impossible, doubling that seems too sharp to be accidental, mint marks that are slightly misplaced, and tiny variations that specialists can spend hours cataloging, because each small imperfection adds another layer of intrigue, and that intrigue translates directly into market value. What also fuels the $60 million price tag is the psychology of collecting itself, where rarity, provenance, and competition intersect, and in this case, the rarity is near absolute, the provenance has been documented through major auction houses, and the competition among high-net-worth collectors who want to own the rarest of the rare drives the price upward beyond rational levels, making this coin not just a collectible, but an investment and a trophy asset. The 2000D penny is valuable not just because of the minting errors, but because of what those errors symbolize. They represent the unpredictability of production, the imperfections of machinery, the limits of quality control, and the fact that even in the most controlled processes something can slip through that later becomes a miracle for collectors. And that symbolism adds emotional weight to the financial value. There are discussions among numismatists about whether there might be other surviving examples, whether the coin is truly unique, or if more are sitting undiscovered in collections or circulation, and this possibility keeps excitement alive, because the thrill of the hunt is what keeps the collecting community vibrant. Yet even if more appear, the original discovery and the first documented coin will always hold primacy and therefore command the highest price. To put $60 million into perspective, that is a price tag larger than most Picasso paintings, larger than some entire rare car collections, and it makes the 2000D set one of the most expensive pieces of modern numismatics ever known. And what is most incredible is that its intrinsic metal content is worth less than a cent, meaning the entire value rests purely on the human interpretation of error, rarity, and narrative. Collectors and investors often speculate on how coins like this gain mythic status, and it usually comes down to a mixture of timing, publicity, expert validation, and market enthusiasm, all of which happened with the 2000D penny, because once experts confirmed the uniqueness of the errors, once stories spread across coin forums and magazines, once major auctions gave it spotlight, the legend solidified. And legends always fetch legendary prices. The first layer of mystery surrounding the 2000D one-cent coin comes from the fact that errors in minting are not uncommon, yet what makes this coin stand out is the magnitude and uniqueness of its defects. Defects that combine in a way so rare that even professional graders were stunned when they first examined it, noting doubling on the obverse, misaligned dies, and possible planchet issues that should never have slipped through quality control, but somehow did, creating a coin that is effectively a once-in-a-lifetime accident, a miracle of misproduction that instantly turned from pocket change into a multi-million-dollar artifact. When collectors look at a coin like this, they are not just seeing metal, they are seeing a story pressed into copper and zinc, a story that records the exact moment when human error and machine malfunction collided to create a piece of accidental art, and the 2000D cent is exactly that, a masterpiece of mistake that holds value precisely because it should not exist in its current form. Some of the possibilities that have been proposed by experts include double die errors where inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" appear with ghost-like shadows, striking misalignments where the portrait of Lincoln looks slightly off, and even over-polished dies that gave the coin surfaces an unusual shine or removed small design features, all of which increase desirability because each error tells us about what went wrong in the minting process. It is important to realize that most mint errors are caught and destroyed before coins reach circulation, but in this case, the 2000D penny not only escaped detection, it made its way into the hands of collectors who quickly realized just how unusual it was, and once numismatic publications began writing about it, demand skyrocketed, because scarcity combined with storytelling always generates value in the collectibles market. Imagine for a moment a regular penny, something you might find in your pocket change, and then imagine that same coin being scrutinized under magnification and revealing anomalies that should be impossible, doubling that seems too sharp to be accidental, mint marks that are slightly misplaced, and tiny variations that specialists can spend hours cataloging, because each small imperfection adds another layer of intrigue, and that intrigue translates directly into market value. Next, 2000D Lincoln penny. Today we dive into one of the most astonishing stories in the entire world of numismatics, a tale so extraordinary that it captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and investors alike, because we are about to explore the incredible saga of a simple coin, a small copper-plated zinc disc produced in the year 2000 at the Denver Mint, the so-called 2000 1-cent piece. A coin that for most people would seem like ordinary pocket change, but under the right circumstances, with the right combination of striking mistakes, die misalignments, doubled features, off-metal compositions, and unintentional anomalies, it can rise to become something of monumental importance, even reaching values that boggle the mind. And in one extraordinary scenario, such a coin, laden with unique characteristics, could fetch a valuation of $50 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $50 million for a single penny, a story that not only highlights the quirks and imperfections of minting technology but also emphasizes the allure of rarity, the human drive to own something no one else can, and the immense cultural and historical weight that error coins can accumulate. And so as we set out on this long exploration, we invite you to imagine not just the coin itself but the journey it has taken, the machinery that struck it, the hands that first held it, the sharp-eyed collectors who noticed something was different, and the numismatic community that debated its significance. For in every curve of its rim and every microscopic line within its devices lies a narrative of imperfection, a narrative that transforms mundane currency into an artifact of legendary value. And in understanding how such a simple piece could become worth more than a luxury mansion or a fleet of exotic cars, we must unravel the layers of error that could possibly be present on the 2000 cent. Beginning with the most common varieties, like doubled dies, where the hub imprints design elements twice, creating ghost-like outlines around letters and numbers, making the date, the motto, or Lincoln's profile appear doubled, and then extending into off-center strikes where the coin is not seated properly in the collar during striking, causing a crescent of blank planchet to show alongside a partial design, an error that can make coins anywhere from slightly unusual to dramatically collectible depending on the degree of misalignment. But our theoretical $50 million cent must go far beyond common mistakes. It must embody an almost mythical combination of anomalies, such as being struck on a transitional wrong planchet perhaps left over from a different denomination or composition, like a dime stock or even a foreign coin blank that happened to be in the presses that day, creating a hybrid rarity. And when you consider that in 2000 the U.S. Mint had transitioned fully to copper-plated zinc cents, the possibility of one being mistakenly struck on a solid copper planchet would be enough to cause major interest, because that would be a throwback to the pre-1982 composition. But the ultimate draw comes when multiple errors converge. Imagine, for instance, a 2000 cent struck not only off metal but also with a double die obverse, a rotated reverse, a broad strike without the collar, a mispunchment mark, and perhaps even a dramatic clash mark from dies striking without a planchet in between, leaving ghost impressions of the reverse design on the obverse field, all of these stacking together to create a specimen that is not just rare but singular, perhaps the only one in existence. And in numismatics, the value of the only example of its kind skyrockets because collectors recognize they may never again encounter such a coin, fueling bidding wars at auctions and private sales, pushing the price higher and higher. And when the hype, rarity, and historical mystique align perfectly, the theoretical ceiling of $50 million becomes imaginable, especially if the coin is accompanied by authentication from top grading agencies like PCGS or NGC, housed in a secure holder, given a unique pedigree, and marketed as the pinnacle of error coinage. And while skeptics may say no penny could ever reach such heights, we must remember that collectibles are driven not by intrinsic metal content but by rarity, demand, and narrative, the same forces that make a baseball card, a comic book, or a piece of artwork reach astronomical sums, and the 2001 cent in this scenario encapsulates those forces perfectly. But to truly appreciate how we arrive at that potential valuation, we must carefully examine each possible error type in detail, starting with doubled dies, which occur during the hubbing process when the working die is impressed more than once but not in perfect alignment, creating noticeable doubling on lettering such as Liberty or I in God We Trust. And if the date itself, 2000, shows dramatic doubling, collectors immediately recognize it as significant because dates are focal points on coins. And when you add the mint mark D also appearing doubled due to a repunched or misaligned application, the eye appeal becomes even stronger. Now imagine this doubling combined with a major off-center strike of perhaps 60% or more, leaving part of Lincoln's bust cut off and exposing blank planchet space. Suddenly the coin no longer looks like any ordinary cent. It looks alien, it looks unique, and that visual uniqueness is key to desirability. And when we further imagine that the coin was struck on a foreign planchet, say intended for a coin of similar diameter but different composition, like a silver-based alloy, we introduce metallurgical rarity as well, because collectors love coins that should not exist, coins that defy the expected materials of their era. So our hypothetical 2000D cent could be tested and revealed to have a weight and composition completely outside the norm, sparking controversy, headlines, and fierce competition among top collectors to secure it. And in that climate, every added anomaly multiplies the value. Die cracks running across the coin like jagged lightning bolts add personality. Cuts where portions of the die broke off create raised lumps of metal that mark the coin forever. Broad strikes spread the design beyond the intended rim, producing oversized irregular flans. Multiple strikes where the coin failed to eject and was struck again layer designs upon one another in chaotic but mesmerizing patterns. Rotated dies create reverses twisted at odd degrees relative to the obverse, and all of these errors taken individually can bring a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on severity. But when all combine miraculously in one coin, they create what collectors dream of finding, the holy grail of mint errors. And the lore surrounding such a coin would only grow over time, as stories circulate of its discovery, perhaps in a roll of cents pulled from circulation, perhaps hidden in a private hoard for decades before emerging, its legend fueled by speculation, numismatic publications, social media chatter, and the aura of impossibility made real. And as with famous coins, like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1913 Liberty Nickel, once the legend takes hold, the value is no longer anchored in logic but in mythology. And that is how a cent could command not just thousands or millions, but an extraordinary sum like $50 million, because people are not only bidding on copper-plated zinc, they are bidding on a piece of history, a conversation starter, a once-in-human civilization anomaly. And so as we follow this story through its endless possibilities, we realize the journey of the 2000D cent is not just about errors and minting mistakes. It is about human fascination with rarity, imperfection, and the chance to hold something absolutely unique. A reminder that in the tiniest details lie the greatest treasures. And as you reflect on this, know that this channel exists to keep you inspired, engaged, and ever curious about the incredible world of coins, where even a humble cent can ascend to the throne of value and rewrite the definition of treasure forever.